36.4. Now let's test it on the Pixel 8 Pro's thermometer. Excuse me. 36.3. Hey, look at that. Pretty damn close. As you can tell, I'm actually not feeling 100%. I've had the worst cold this week, which has been really frustrating during Techtober, but I'm here because I want to talk about the Pixel 8 Pro and share with you my full review, and hopefully answer the question of whether you should actually buy this. And while it is certainly the best Pixel they've ever made, obviously, and actually a solid step up even over last year's 7 Pro, I do still have a couple of issues with this. Some of the most exciting features just aren't available yet, and this is also the most expensive Pixel they've ever made. The 8 Pro will set you back a cool £999. That's the same in dollars, which represents a $100 or £150 price increase versus last year's 7 Pro. So it's pretty expensive, and that is also for the bog standard 128 gig model. Although it is only 60 quid to then double it to 256, which I would definitely recommend. Or if you can pick up a Pixel 8 Pro with one of Google's deals where you get like a free Pixel Watch 2, which is worth 350 quid, that's a pretty good deal. Look at that, it is a bit tasty, isn't it? This is the new babe blue color. Now, fortunately, I actually have all three new colors of the 8 Pro. We've got the porcelain, aka off-white, we got the obsidian, black, and also this very tasty new babe blue, which I think is one of the best looking phones I've seen in a long time. Why do I have 3 Pixel 8 Pros? Well, I actually have a 4th one over there, and that's because this is a review sample sent by Google, and I actually bought these 2 plus the 3rd one to give to my dad, my brother, and my wife, who all absolutely love Pixels, as do I. And I suppose if buying the phones for your friends and family is not like the highest recommendation, the highest score you could give a phone, then I'm not sure what is. Obviously that says something about how much I like these guys. The headline upgrades include a much brighter screen. We have this slightly refreshed design, including a matte rather than glossy back, and also a flat rather than curved screen. Google have also added a temperature sensor on the back for some reason. We also get their faster and more efficient Tensor G3 chip, new camera sensors with wider apertures, pro camera options, Ultra HDR photos, which make bright areas look much more vibrant on the Pixel's HDR screen. The selfie camera now supports autofocus, and of course a whole bunch more of Google's AI magic with Best Take, Audio Eraser, the Magic Editor, AI-generated wallpapers, improved call screening. We also now have Wi-Fi 7, we get tougher Gorilla Glass Victus 2, the face unlocking has been upgraded so it's more secure, which means you can now log into your banking apps and autofill passwords with your face, as previously you'd have to use your fingerprint. We also have slightly faster charging, and of course it ships with Android 14, and Google promised a whopping 7 years of Android updates, which is great to see. So there's quite a lot new here with the 8 Pro, but let's kick off talking about this design. Google have dropped this waterfall screen in favor of a flat screen, which funnily enough is what the cheaper non-Pro models would have. And if I bring in the regular Pixel 8, you can see in terms of design, there isn't really that much in it now, just the size difference, 6.2 versus 6.7 inches, although the 8 Pro has a matte glass back and also a glossy frame, and it's the other way around on the 8. Also a temperature sensor here, the extra telephoto lens of course, slightly thinner bezels, and a couple of different color options. And I really do like this new design. It feels more comfortable, it's easier to pick up, and I much prefer this matte rather than glossy back. You can also see we've got much more sort of rounded corners, so it just feels a little bit smaller in the hand overall. The only downside is it's actually a millimeter thicker this year. Although, while I do appreciate that this doesn't pick up any sort of smudges or fingerprints, this sort of metallic frame around the camera module does seem to scratch and scuff quite easily. I've only had this for a week, it might be kind of hard for the camera to pick it up, but I've already got a couple of little micro scratches on the bottom here. However, we do still get IP68 water and dust resistance, so it will survive a dunk in fresh water. And it's good to see in Jerry Rig Everything's evaluation that it's pretty durable as well. Google's also changed the screen's aspect ratio, although just a little bit. We've gone from 19.5 by 9 to 20 by 9, so it's a tiny bit taller, but you'd be hard pressed to notice. You'd also be forgiven for not seeing this guy, the new temperature sensor underneath the flash, this contactless thermometer, and I don't really know why it's there. Maybe seeing how hot a pan is or baby's milk, and it could be a basic indicator if you're getting sick, I guess, although Google says it's not really designed for that. I have found it kind of useful to just check the ambient temperature of a room. Let's see how consistent that is. 19.7, 19.9, 19.4. There's like half a degree variation there, but it can perhaps answer the age-old question of, is it just me or is it hot in here? Other than that, I'm not quite sure why you'd need this. If you've got any good suggestions, let me know in the comments. What is more exciting though is this screen, and boy does it get bright. Now both the 8 and the 8 Pro offer similarly high brightnesses, and that's thanks to their new Actua and Super Actua screens, as Google call it. And across the board, whether it's typical use indoors, HDR, and even outdoor use, the new Pixels are significantly brighter. But to save some battery, the 8 Pro's refresh rate now goes between 1 and 120Hz versus 10 and 120 last year. Now I mentioned they slightly tweaked the aspect ratio, but they've also slightly tweaked the resolution. It's actually a little bit lower this year. That high res option, the default one, the 8 Pro gives us 367 pixels per inch versus 384 last year. You'd be hard pressed to notice, but it is ever so slightly lower res. I also kind of wish they'd added like a dynamic resolution option, so it would switch between the full resolution, which honestly I'm never going to switch to, because with Pixels, including the 8 Pro, I want to get every little bit of drop of battery I possibly can from this, so I'll save that battery. It also makes it the lowest resolution among the Galaxy S23 Ultra, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and these other two also benefit from Dolby Vision HDR support, which sadly we don't get on the Pixel. The viewing angles don't appear to be quite as good. You can see the new 8 Pro here has a much more sort of green tint to the screen rather than the more natural white on the 7 Pro. Yeah, I think the viewing angles are actually a tiny bit of a step down this year, which is strange. So there is still some room for improvement. Viewing angles, maybe a dynamic resolution option, Dolby Vision, but I do much prefer this flat rather than curved screen, and the higher brightness definitely makes a difference. Now on the inside, both the 8 and the 8 Pro sport the new Tensor G3 chip. Now this is Google's own custom processor based around Samsung's Exynos architecture, which has historically been a bit rubbish. Good in the fact that it allows Google to sort of tweak and optimize the chips to allow for some of these sort of AI magic feature things, the software extras, and also it allows them to offer longer support for the phone. And also because it's stock Android 14 in this case, it is still incredibly fast to use. The downside is they've never been particularly efficient, they've overheated, and the performance, particularly for gaming, has always been a bit meh. So does the G3, their third generation Tensor chip, which is now built on a more efficient 4 rather than 5 nanometer design, resolve any of these issues? Well, yes, a bit. In Geekbench 6, single core scores are 19% higher, multi-core is 13% higher, although in Antutu, which is a broader test of the processor and the graphics, we're looking at a 25% uptick. And in War Thunder, with maxed out settings, although without ray tracing because the Pixel doesn't seem to offer this yet, although the Samsung and the iPhone do, the 7 Pro is averaging around sort of 82 FPS, with the 8 Pro giving us about 105. So a decent little step up in gaming performance, but it still can't quite match its flagship competition. Another problem we've had with past Pixels, including last year's 7 Pro, is overheating and also some pretty average battery life. Now I do have good news. On average, the 8 Pro is 2 degrees Celsius cooler than the 7 Pro. Not a huge difference, but I'll take it. And only once so far did the 8 Pro tell me it couldn't keep shooting 4K 60 video because the device was getting too hot. And that was after some pretty extensive use, so overheating issues are still present, but less than before. The biggest pain point for me though has been battery life, and after having used the 7 Pro and the 8 Pro as similarly as possible for a full day, by 11 PM at night I had 22% of my battery left on this guy versus 27% on the 8 Pro. Still not class leading, but it is better. And I think if you're coming from a Pixel 6 or a 5, then you will definitely appreciate the extra battery you get with this. Even though I think with a 5050 mAh battery, with the performance that we get from the G3 and the improved efficiency, I still think it should last longer than this, and it might do, because as you guys know with Pixels particularly, the battery can improve over time as the software sort of learns your patterns and gets used to you essentially. So this may go up a little bit over the next few weeks and months, and I will revisit this in a longer term review. But yes, the battery life is a little bit better, as is the charging. They've also sped up the wired charging from 23 to 30 watts, and wireless charging is now boosted to 23 watts, although only if you use Google's own new stand. Otherwise, with standard Qi chargers, it tops out at 12 watts. And sadly, this doesn't support the new Qi 2 standard. For me, there's always 4 things that make a Pixel phone stand out. There's the software, the fact that you have stock Android, which feels nice and fast and it's the quickest to get updates. We also have great cameras, one of the best on the market, and also historically they've been really good value. I'm not quite sure if that still remains with the price increase on these guys. But number 4 are the extras, those Google Magic AI features. Features that make you say, well, I can't switch to a Samsung or an iPhone or whatever because, well, I'll be missing out on this. And that's where these guys really stand out. And they've improved a lot of these AI features on the 8 series, like call screening, which can answer calls for you and give you a live transcript of the call on the screen so you can decide whether to answer it or send a message or just hang up. And I love this. I also really like this feature, which will read aloud whatever website you have up, so it's kind of like turning a written article into an audiobook. It can come across a little robotic, but I still think it's kind of neat.
You just have to create on a holodeck a grand universe to explore.
A brand new feature is this AI-generated wallpaper, which, well, does exactly what it says on the tin, really. Enter a prompt, wait about 30 seconds, and create your very own slightly trippy wallpapers. And as someone who always struggles to find a good new wallpaper, I found myself using this a lot. Okay, let's do a live test using the Google Assistant to do voice to text, or dictation, if you will. We've got the 7 Pro, you've got the 8 Pro, and this is me just talking behind the camera, just waffling on, telling you to like and subscribe and click that notification bell and all those horrible YouTuber cliches and things like that. Although I can see the 8 Pro's adding more grammar and is sort of correcting itself as it goes a bit better. So yeah, seems to be a little bit smarter this year. Then of course we have all the camera AI features, and Magic Eraser and Unblur make a return, and exclusively on the 8 Pro we now get enhanced Magic Eraser, which uses the new on-device AI, and it seems to be a bit better at removing larger objects from your photos. But it's the convenience of just tapping edit on a photo and doing a quick touch-up with Magic Eraser, using Unblur because, well, why not, and usually it comes out looking a little bit more detailed. Yes, you can do a lot of this stuff in Lightroom or Photoshop, but that's several extra steps, and this is much faster and free. Another new feature is called Audio Eraser. Now we've got this lovely trumpeter in the background here, which is very nice, but I don't want it in my video call or my little vlog, so if I turn on Audio Eraser, hopefully it's cut out some of that background noise. It'll actually identify what's in the video, like background noise, pets, sirens, I imagine, then you can sort of isolate and reduce those background sounds. So it's a bit like Magic Eraser for your photos, but, well, for your sound, which is why it's called Audio Eraser. And you simply shoot your video and then tap edit afterwards, and you can reduce that background noise. The 8 Pro also gives us this new Magic Editor option. Google announced this a few months ago, and right now at least it is exclusive to the 8 Pro, and also does require your photo to have been uploaded to Google Photos. But this generative AI tool, much like the latest versions of Photoshop, lets you move and resize subjects in your photos. Then we have Best Take. This is also a new feature for the Pixel 8, and if I edit my photo, I then go into Tools, you'll see this Best Take option. If I tap that, give it a second, it will find all the faces in the photo, hopefully all the faces. There we go, 5 people, 5 faces. And so if I click on, let's say, Dan's face right here, with this particular shot, I've got 5 different options for, well, face swapping Dan, essentially. Sorry, Dan. And the results range from pretty good to hilarious to a little bit creepy. The caveat is you do need to upload it to Google Photos and have an internet connection, and my experience has been a little bit hit or miss. The problem is it requires you, or the person you've handed your phone to take several photos in quick succession. So then the Best Take AI has different options to present to you. But it can also get a bit weird or just miss out faces completely, and there's also something fundamentally creepy about your faces being swapped. And essentially you're creating a new composite photo, using real images that were captured but in different photos a few seconds before or after. Now I know a lot of people are freaking out about this and thinking, well, it's taking photos too far, what is a photo? And I think like half of The Verge's review of this was like talking about Best Take and the AI and what is a photo. It doesn't really matter, it doesn't bother me at least. You don't have to use it. And I think we have this kind of continuum of photo editing. At one end, you've got like Unblur to make your photo a little bit sharper. Then maybe moving up, you sort of add filters and change the colors of photos. Then you have perhaps Magic Eraser, so you can cut out people in the background or tweak your shots to make them look a bit more presentable. And then maybe at the other end of the continuum, you've got Best Take, where you're literally swapping faces, and also the Magic Editor, where you're moving subjects around the photo. And you don't have to use those things, but I appreciate that I have the option, I have these tools in my camera arsenal, if you will, and I think if it allows me to save one great photo that otherwise perhaps I wouldn't want to have shared because someone didn't like the way they looked, then why not? But it's also worth mentioning these AI features do genuinely get better and smarter over time, and also we have seen some of these features go back to earlier Pixels, just via the Google Photos app, so it's hard to say how many of these will always be exclusive 8 series features. Now all that stuff comes after you've taken the photo or the video, it's, editing in post. But what about the actual camera quality? How good is this at taking photos and videos? Well, it's the same setup as last year, 3 lenses with an ultra-wide that doubles as a macro, the main lens, and a 5x telephoto, which you can pinch in up to a 30x zoom. But this year we get bigger sensors and wider apertures, which means it can capture more light, and it should give us clearer, less noisy photos. Also new this year are a range of pro camera options, so you can tinker and tweak your shots, including your full resolution RAW photos, and I think Google's incorporated it well into the camera app. It's hidden away behind this cogwheel if you don't want to get overwhelmed, but it's there if you know what you're doing. Now, to my eye, the camera does offer some minor improvements. The colors seem to be a touch warmer. I think skin tones look a bit more natural. There's also a bit more detail and less noise, although often you have to sort of punch right in and squint to really see the difference. And it does seem to handle dynamic range a little bit better overall, particularly with brighter highlights. And in low light, while some shots you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference, which is kind of surprising given the bigger sensors and the wider apertures, others, the 8 Pro is noticeably brighter. Particularly this Astro mode photo with its 4-minute long multiple exposure, although I don't know if I prefer the new one. But overall, it is a step up, and while perhaps not a significant one, the Pixel 8 Pro continues to be one of, if not the best cameras for pure photography. Up front, the selfie camera now supports autofocus, which is particularly useful for video, and quality is definitely sharper, although not necessarily in a good way. It almost looks like Google's just dragged the sharpness slider up on Photoshop. Now, video is still pretty solid, if not perhaps the strongest area of the Pixel's camera, I'd say, but it does well, even if it can come across a little bit sort of over-sharpened, a touch washed out. So I'm shooting this at 4K on the Pixel 8 Pro. As I'm just walking down looking at the screen, it's pretty remarkable how stable the video is. I think it's using a combination of OIS and EIS. Although it does do a surprisingly good job in low light, and that's without Google's upcoming and much hyped video boost mode, which they claim will make the 8 Pro the best phone for low light video. We'll see about that. And then we do also have blur video, which is like Samsung's portrait video or Apple's cinematic mode on iPhone, and it just gives you that sort of blurry bokeh behind you. Although I am shooting this on the back of the phone with the main camera, so I actually can't see what it looks like. Hopefully you get a bit of an idea of how well it's dealing with the sort of edge detection around me, the video quality. So I've only had about a week with this so far. I do want to spend more time with the Pixel 8 Pro and its camera over the coming months. Google say more updates are coming, including these new features later in the year, but on the whole, my experience has been very good, and this is one of the best cameras you can get. It's a nice refinement over the 7 Pro. Photos look a bit more natural, the Pro options are nice to have, as are all those magic tools you have to enhance and improve your photos in post. Although one limitation I've come across is why if portraits can only be taken with the main lens, or then with a 2 or 3 times crop, the 5x lens isn't an option for portraits. So, should you buy a Pixel 8 Pro? Well, my answer is yes. I absolutely love these phones. I think there's always room for improvement. Battery is still a little bit middling. Gaming performance still isn't up there with the competition. And we're soon to see new chips as well, which will be even more powerful. So if you're a big gamer or if you want the absolute best battery life, probably look elsewhere, but I love the software. That stock Android experience is super duper fast. It is more expensive this year, but considering it offers comparable size, cameras, and features to, say, an iPhone 15 Pro Max or a Galaxy S23 Ultra, even if the battery life and gaming performance perhaps isn't quite at the same level, the price isn't actually too bad, especially if you can bag yourself a free watch. However, you do also have to consider the regular Pixel 8, which is £300 cheaper. This is $699, this is $999. The main differences, of course, are the smaller screen size. This is 6.2 inches versus 6.7. Same Tensor G3 chip, although 8 gigs of RAM rather than 12. The main differences are the camera. We lose the telephoto lens. We lose that temperature sensor as well, but I'm sure we'll survive. And also slightly smaller sensors with narrower apertures. So the camera quality is a bit of a step down, but overall, if you do prefer a smaller phone, it's got similar battery life, the same lovely bright screen, but just in a more compact form factor. For 300 quid less, I reckon the Pixel 8 actually may be the better option. which is awkward because I've just spent all my time talking about the Pixel 8 Pro. But what do you reckon? Would you be tempted to buy one of these? Have you already got one? Let me know what you make of the new Pixel 8s in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you've got any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe will be lovely. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.